Welcome into Texans today. Got a great show on tap for you. Coming up, the top draft targets in round one for your Houston Texans. Now, I'm making this video after a huge news day yesterday where, I don't know, the Texans, did they do anything yesterday, Colin? Oh, yeah, they extended Danielle Hunter, and they signed a new left tackle in Cam Robinson. So on today's show, I'm going to be going through some of the top options for the Texans to do in round one of the 2025 NFL Draft. But if this is your first time watching this show, if you're like, hey, what is Texans today? We are your one-stop shop for Texans news and rumors, free agency, draft, offseason, during the season. It doesn't matter. Phoenix Sun, Capri Sun, Lakers in 5, whatever. All I want you to do right now is make sure you are the most notified Texans fan out there. And how you do that, step 1, hit the sub button. Step 2, click that noti bell. And step 3, select the all option. So when we drop a video, if there's Texans news, you are the first one to know about it. Now, let's get into our top options in round one. And I'm going to cheat right off the get. I'm going to go defensive line for basically the number 10 option for your Houston Texans. I'm going to split it between Kenneth Grant and Walter Nolen. If one of these guys falls to 25, I could see the Texans being intrigued to say, hey, maybe they're one of our top guys on our board. Kenneth Grant has been somebody that, even going into last season, a lot of people were amazed by his blend of size and athleticism on the interior of that Michigan defensive line. I know 2024, the entire Michigan team had a down year, but Kenneth Grant is a mammoth of a human being, moves really well for his size too, could be a decent option if the Texans want to continue just scary hours on the defensive line. And same with Walter Nolen, another guy who is a round one type prospect out of Ole Miss, another defensive lineman where if the Texans want to say, hey, we want to just bulk up our trenches for the future, both these guys are options. Not really my cup of tea that I think the Texans should do in round one, but at least make my list here. Next up, Jihaad Campbell, which he actually had some news around him, I believe came in yesterday, that he got hurt at the combine and is going to have to, I believe, have surgery as well. That's going to affect his draft stock at some level, right? He's still a great player. I think a lot of people consider him as a round one style prospect. But at the end of the day, with that injury, it might push him down on a couple people's boards. And we know DeMeco Ryans loves Alabama prospects. And adding to this defense, a guy who's a Swiss Army knife, he can rush off the edge. He can play off-ball linebacker. He can drop into coverage. He can do a little bit of everything for you. Jihaad Campbell at 25 would be a surprising pick. I would be shocked if they made that move, but the value's there if the Texans do go there in round one. But obviously, it's no secret that the Texans are probably going to go offensive line or should go offensive line early and often in this draft. But I'm going to ask you this question. If they don't draft an offensive lineman in round one, what position do you think they take? Let me know down in the comments section. I'll be looking. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's video. So you get hit with the YouTube ad break here. Perfect timing. Scroll on down and let me know. What position will the Texans take if they don't go O-line in round one? I think a lot of y'all are going to be typing receiver, and that's where I'm going with this next option in round one. Luther Burden has been a very weird prospect to follow throughout this draft cycle because if you go into the start of the college football season, everybody was like, Luther Burden's probably a top 10 pick. Going into the combine, people were like, oh, yeah, Luther Burden, for sure a first-round pick. And now that we're after the combine, going into pro days, people are like, oh, Luther Burden's more of a second-rounder. He seems to be just falling down draft boards. Guys like Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Tet McMillan, all those guys are kind of rising. And Luther Burden, his stock keeps on kind of falling down. I don't know how he necessarily fits in a Nick Caley style of offense, but he's a very talented wideout. I don't think he's the first option for the Texans if they're looking for receiver in round one, but something you just got to keep an eye on if you are a Texans fan. Next up, and full transparency, I was making this list before the Texans went ahead and signed Cam Robinson, their left tackle. And I honestly don't know if I'd push Josh Simmons higher or lower on this list because the signing of Cam Robinson is a one-year deal, which means I think that, They could still go left tackle and try to groom somebody into that position, or maybe battle Cam Robinson in camp, or maybe they go the opposite and go with an interior guy. But Josh Simmons is a really good prospect coming out of Ohio State. A lot of people say he would be the #1 tackle prospect in this draft class if he didn't get injured this past year, missing 10 games with that knee injury. I think Josh Simmons is a great prospect. The only thing that worries me with Josh Simmons is he reminds me, I'm not saying his game is exactly like Laremy Tunsil, but he is more pass blocking and more pass blocking, that's where his focus is, right? He's a great pass blocker, not as nasty in the run game as you'd like. And I think that's where the Texans want to go with their offensive line. They want maulers, they want big boys, glass eaters up front. And Josh Simmons gives me more of a finesse vibe. He's somebody who he's got great footwork, great hand placement, really good in pass protection. But is he going to give you that in, goal line packages up against guys whenever they're stacking the box against Joe Mixon? Is he going to be able to push guys off the line? I'm not sure that the power's there for Josh Simmons, but a really good tackle prospect nonetheless in this year's draft class. Talking about wide receivers, Matthew Golden next up on the list, wide receiver out of the University of Texas. And he's somebody who our guys at the NFL Draft Combine came back to Chat Sports office, and one thing they told me was there are certain scouts, certain teams that have Matthew Golden as their wide receiver 1 in this year's class, above Tet McMillan. Now, personally, do I believe that? No, I think it's a little bit of a smokescreen, right? People are like, oh, yeah, of course. I don't like Tet McMillan, hoping that he falls a little bit. But Matthew Golden is very talented nonetheless. Tested well at the Combine and, had really good production. If you watch the college football playoff in a couple of those games, he was an X factor for the University of Texas. I think if he's there at 25, it'd be a tough decision for the Texans to pass on the young kid out of the University of Texas. And where did he go to school before UT? Oh, yeah, that's right. University of Houston. He was a Houston Cougar before he went to Austin, so maybe he wants to come back home to Houston. He's also from Houston, so maybe a hometown kid, a little reunion there with the Houston Texans. Now, before we get into the next 5 guys, these guys just missed the cut. Colston Loveland, tight end. Malachi Starks, defensive back, because the Texans, only because the Texans traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, so I think that kind of pushes him down the list. Jalen Walker, linebacker, which necessarily, I don't even know if he makes it to 25. I've been seeing him get mocked in the top 15, and I've been seeing him get mocked in the 20. So not sure where he lands. T.J. Sanders, another good defensive tackle, and Josh Connerly Jr., offensive lineman from the University of Oregon. All these guys have been getting some round 1 hype. They just missed the cut for me. I don't think that's where the Texans go with their pick. But if we're being honest, and I think a lot of Texans fans feel this sentiment, my top option for the Texans would be to trade back and gain more draft capital in rounds 2 or 3, because the Texans last year, it worked for them. They were cooking in those, early rounds outside of round 1. That's where they got Kamari Lassiter, Kalen Bullock, Blake Fisher, which all turned out to be pretty decent picks if you're asking me. So I went through some PFF mock drafts, and I also talked to some people within the Chat Sports offices, and I have 3 trade back options to show you, and I just want to get your opinion on which one of these you like best. I use PFF mock draft, and I also use the trade value chart, which basically assigns a number for each pick in the NFL draft, and you want to make the totals somewhat equal. So say, in this first one, the Patriots receive the Texans' first-round pick at 25. The Texans receive their second and third-round pick. So the Texans pick, I believe, was around 750 points on the trade value chart, and these 2 picks added up to around 750 points. So that's how I worked it with there. But this is the first trade back option, right? It's just plain and simple. You get a second and a third-round pick. You're moving back, 13 spots in the draft. So an earlier second-round pick, and you get a third-round pick, 2 picks in this year's draft. That is the first mock draft trade that I wanted to show you. Next up, you're moving back even further. This one might scare some Texans fans because you're totally getting outside the top 50 with this. You're trading back with the LA Chargers. You're getting their second-round pick, third-round pick this year, but because you're moving back so much, you're also adding a 2026 third-round pick, which you're just stacking picks in the 2026 NFL Draft if this is the one that you're looking to do. Or this is my last option, and this is exactly the trade that the Texans made last offseason with the Minnesota Vikings. They traded it out of the first round, and they got a second-round pick early on, and then they got a second-round pick in 2026. So you're getting 2 second-round picks in this mock draft. You're not moving back as far, but you're getting, draft capital moving forward, too, in the 2026 NFL draft. So I'm going to have my man Cullen on the ones and twos. He's going to cycle through the trades right now. Go down in the comment section and let me know, which trade do you like the best? 1, 2, or 3? Honestly, in my opinion, I kind of like the second one. The third one. You don't move back too far, right? You go to 37, but you also get a second-round pick next year. And I think, moving forward with all the guys you're going to have to pay, I think Nick Caserio sees that and goes, you know what, we could use some draft capital moving forward. Let me know down in the comment section, though, which trade back option do you like the best, or do you think the Texans shouldn't trade back at all? And while you're down there giving me your answer, if you're looking for a new Texans hat, I got you covered. Our friends over at Fanatics, use this link right here, chatsports.com/Texans hats. They got you covered. All the new hats, all the new threads. They have snapbacks. They have dad hats. They have trucker hats. They have the old logo. They have the new H-Town logo. They have the Salute to Service hats. Every single hat style variation, whatever you need. I think we even have one of those summer luau hat. Oh, Cullen. That's why he's the man right here. They even have this hat for you if you're looking to maybe go on maybe a cruise, a beach vacation. Everything available for you. One more time, that link is in the comment section, description of today's video. It is chatsports.com/Texans hats. Go check them out today. Now, let's get into my top options. If the Texans are staying in round 1, these are the guys I'd really like them to consider getting. First up, Kelvin Banks Jr. If the Texans are going for a left tackle, he is my number 1 option for the Houston Texans, and it is because of this. I think he is a perfect blend of helping you in the pass game, and also he brings a little bit of nastiness as well in the run game. I like his tape at Texas. He was the anchor for that Texas offensive line, which a lot of people considered one of the best in the entire nation. He was a starting left tackle for 3 consecutive seasons for the University of Texas. Played really, really well for the Longhorns. And you see those grades, right? Only 1 sack allowed, 86 overall PFF grade, 89, almost a 90 pass blocking grade, and 81 run blocking grade. Kelvin Banks is my number 1 option for the Houston Texans, especially because, 1, I like what he brings in the run game, and 2, I have him a little bit over Josh Simmons just because the injury. The injury to Josh Simmons does worry me, his explosiveness. I don't have those same concerns with Kelvin Banks Jr. He would be my top left tackle option for the Houston Texans if they're going pure left tackle in round 1 of the NFL draft. My next option, and this is a option that, like I said, wide receivers probably the top pick for most Texans fans if they don't go O-line in round 1. And Emeka Egbuka might be everybody's top option at wide receiver if he falls to 25. There's obviously the connection there with him and C.J. Stroud. They played together at Ohio State, a very talented receiver. And you look at that number, 2022 stats. That's his stats with C.J. Stroud, his best year at Ohio State. He's a really good route runner, performed well at the combine, and like I said, there's that connection already with C.J. Stroud, and he's a great, talented receiver. You add him to a room with Nico Collins and Christian Kirk, I think this could be a scary receiving unit for C.J. Stroud if that's the pick in round 1. Now, this might be a very controversial one. People might not like this one, but I have Tyler Booker as my 3rd best option for the Texans in round 1. And also, I'm going to say this as well. This is a blend of my top options for the Texans and also what I think they're going to do. I think Tyler Booker is still very much on the Texans' big board for round 1 options. Yes, the PFF numbers aren't amazing. 0 sacks allowed. And what everybody's going to freak out about, what everybody's upset about and going, no way you can draft Tyler Booker, is his RAS score. He did not perform well at the combine whatsoever. A 4.15 out of 10. I mean, just to put it lightly, he didn't perform at the combine. He didn't look athletic. He didn't look good there. But he has that nastiness streak. When asked, when his teammates were asked, they were like, yeah, Tyler Booker is basically the Will Anderson Jr. of the offensive line. He's showing up every day. He is a mauler. He's somebody who's nasty, a glass eater. Maybe it doesn't show up in the 40-yard dash or the vertical or the broad jump. But you know who else had a really bad combine and everybody was freaking out when the Texans took him? Kamari Laster. And he turned out to be a really good pick. If the Texans do end up going Tyler Booker, I think Will Anderson Jr. has a lot to say or has a lot to do with it, saying, I went up against this guy for years at Alabama. And I'm giving my stamp of approval on Tyler Booker that he is a good offensive lineman for the Houston Texans. If that's the case, I'm okay with the pick of Tyler Booker at 25. Next up, this is what I think a lot of Texans fans are kind of leaning towards and really like. Gray Zabel, maybe the biggest riser from the combine, from everything that's happened in the pre-draft process. He has been awesome. He was awesome at the Senior Bowl. Literally they were doing one-on-ones. Every defensive lineman, interior, exterior, was calling him out. And according to all reports, he basically beat everybody at the Senior Bowl, showed up at the NFL Combine, and put on an absolute show. 6'6", 312 pounds, versatile. He can play tackle. He can play guard. He might be the best center in this year's NFL draft. Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. The only thing where I don't know if Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans absolutely love the small school guys. I think they like their Georgia, Alabama prospects. So that might hurt Zabel a little bit. Also, I don't even know if he makes it all the way to pick 25 because a lot of teams are very fond of him in the first round. So Gray Zabel could be an intriguing option for the Texans in round 1. But this one might surprise people. And he's off of a lot of people's radars. But learn the name Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. Everybody's talking about Josh Simmons to the Texans in round 1. I think if the draft started today, I would put my money on Donovan Jackson being the Texans selection in round 1. He is a gritty, hard-nosed offensive lineman who also gives you that versatility throughout all the positions. He's played tackle. He's played guard. He can play center. And he's performed excellently at Ohio State. This past year, the PFF grades all around the 70s, only 2 sacks allowed, only 2 penalties on the year as well. Donovan Jackson is somebody who I think this Texans front office, this Texans team, is starting to fall in love with. He also looked really good in the combine drills as well. Like I said, he's off of a lot of people's radar. And people think, oh, Donovan Jackson, you can get him in round 2. I don't think that's the case. I think he goes round 1, one of the first picks in round 2. So it might be a reach in some people's eyes, but he kind of fits all the boxes that the Texans want. A gritty offensive lineman, plays for a big school. Ohio State, was a teammate with C.J. Stroud. That's a double plus right there. And then he gives you that versatility along the offensive line. Because you got Cam Robinson at left tackle, you can then put Donovan Jackson at left guard or right guard and then groom him to be the left tackle or right tackle of the future. I like the pick of Donovan Jackson. I think that's probably going to be the pick for the Houston Texans as of right now. Obviously, things will change as we get closer to the NFL draft. But at least for me, that would be my number 1 option for the Texans right now in terms of who I think they'll draft and who I think they should draft. Donovan Jackson is the blend of both of those, and I think that would be the Texans pick at pick 25. Now, go down in the comment section. Hit me up on Twitter because I know a lot of people are going to call me crazy for this. A lot of people are going to say, Jeremy, you don't know ball at all. Donovan Jackson? No way. Well, hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs. Get on my DMs. Get in my DMs, and we can maybe talk back and forth. We can maybe shoot the you-know-what and talk about who you think the Texans are going to take in round 1. And, hey, if you made it to the end of the video, go down and hit that subscribe button. Join the #1 Texans channel here on YouTube and join the over 28,000 people who already call Texans Today home for their Texans news and rumors.